Hello, everyone. I'm David Younger,
Hi, I'm Elvin Aydın Keles.
and we created Chronic Illness Therapy to provide support and resources for people living with chronic health conditions.
Today, we would like to talk about the difficulties that we face when the holiday season is up, and top it up with chronic illness. We think that that gives us a lot of material to talk about, because I think in my practice, I've seen so many people seeking therapy during those months. When it's the holiday season, people's existential concerns come up. It's really hard. We all have yearnings and longings and fantasies about um, being loved, having a family, being among friends, and the hopes. And then during those holiday times, when they don't become real, it's so stressful and so disappointing. On top of it, coming up to the holidays, I think there is a lot of tension building up, and dealing with a chronic illness or cancer during those times can be extremely stressful, and that's what we thought we should talk about today.
Yeah, and um, when I think of it, I think of the logistics. And I think for people living with chronic illnesses, the routine that you create for yourself becomes it really sacred and
Mm.
important because it's usually very thought out and involves a lot of self-care.
Mm.
So, number one, if you have to travel during the holidays, that is obviously it's tiring. It takes you
Mhm.
out of your routine, out of your home environment,
Mm.
and um, and usually staying in either with friends or family or in a hotel. So it's harder to navigate your environment as well. And then it's about like figuring out, how do I take time for myself? How do I take care of myself when I'm in, you know, constantly having to do things with family, and they're not struggling with the same issues that 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 you are. So there's a lot that goes into it.
I couldn't agree more. I would also add to these, um, when we see our loved ones, we obviously, I mean, they always obviously um, really mean well, but sometimes they ask certain questions or they talk in a certain way that really upsets us. Especially, let's say you have cancer, let's say you have metastatic cancer, and you're looking at an uncertain future. It can be long, but it's uncertain. And the way they ask questions and how to surf those questions, I think, is a good subject to talk about. That creates a lot of stress among my clients, I know for a fact, and I'm sure it's the same for any person with dealing with a chronic illness.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the questions can seem really insensitive, but other times I think other people manage it by just ignoring it or not talking about it, and that can make you feel kind of invisible, or like,
Mm.
do people care? And I think I think that it's, for the most part, obviously, that everyone's different, but people in general are well-meaning and well-intentioned. It's not that they're trying to be. It's not that they don't care or don't want to talk about it. It's their own discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know that they're thinking, oh well, maybe you don't want to talk about it, so that they're not going to bring it up. But it can create a whole host of really, really bad feelings as a result.
Yes, and also, as you said, I mean, how to deal with that? I mean, do you brush it off? Do you explain yourself? Because it can be very hard at times to get your point through. Also, the other person may just disrespect you even more based on that information. They can take that and throw it back at you, and how to stay in a sort of adult place and honor the other person, you know, in their efforts to relate to you, but also protect our feelings, our vulnerabilities. I think that's an important thing to discuss.
Yeah, it reminds me, I had a client who basically said to me at some point, like, I'm sick of having to teach people all the time how to be with me and how to, you know, how to relate to me, what to say, what to not to say, and seeing it, you know, seeing everything as a sort of a teaching and a growth moment.
Yeah,
Um, because
yeah,
it can be exhausting, especially with your when you're with the people that ostensibly are the people that, you know you the best, love you the most, and you feel like, well, I shouldn't have to do that with them.
yeah. And you just want to be just like any other person, want to talk about sports or the weather or the, you know, what's happening in the movie industry or whatever, you know, like just easy subjects, and just have a good time and chat, and just want to enjoy the benefits of feeling connected, right? You don't need to have to constantly defend yourself or think about what are you going to do next to prevent yourself from going into a tough situation. When you have cancer also, the difficulties are people are looking at you in sort of a like a pitying way, and it's really tough to navigate that, because um, for some reason people think that if you're healthy, that's like your only reality, like other ways of being, existing, um, it's just so far for them. It just takes you to go through, you or someone you love to go through a chronic illness or just any illness, to realize that how fragile our health is, that absolute health is actually a myth, that, you know, almost everyone is dealing with some health problem. You know, it's just, the severity and the intensity of it that determines how you live.
Right. So, I mean, that's such an important point, because what you're talking about is that if someone is just pitying you, they're not
Mm.
connecting to the reality, to the inevitability that they're going to experience it themselves in some way at some point.
Yeah, they
And
just put themselves in a me and the other position,
yeah,
right? That's such a good point to make. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Or they say, like, I can't imagine, you
yeah.
know, and there are different ways to even say I can't imagine. Like, you can say it in a way that makes you feel joined, like, wow, I don't want to pretend like I know what you're going through. Like, that's
Mm.
a joining way. Or if it's like, I can't imagine how hard it is, but you can sort of feel like, well, they're not really trying to imagine or to to
Mm.
think that this can happen to me.
It's the
Um,
quality of the way they ask, right? Yeah.
yes.
Mm.
So, but and this brings up the issue too. Is it's like, all right, say you're in a situation, and say that the spotlight is suddenly on you, or and people are talking to you about it, and then you can see and sense that some people are uncomfortable, um, and maybe you have a feeling like, well, I want to minimize, uh, make it seem like, well, it's no big deal, or you suddenly in a position where you're trying to make other people feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with what you're going through. I think that's also really common too. It's hard to sort of stay with the reality, um, and more than likely you don't feel like a victim. You
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like someone that wants to be pitied. You actually are owning your, like, this is what I'm going through, and you can own your strength, and empowerment in that as well. um but it's like how to stay with that, the sort of awkwardness, or the discomfort that, surrounding these feelings.
Yeah, and part of me really wants to say, do you really want to know? Or are you just trying to have small talk with me? I mean, that would be one of the ways I would respond, just to break the inauthenticity, you know, in the relationship. I think some people would really ask you considerate questions. They might really try to understand what you're going through. As you said, the quality of it is different. And then I mean, I imagine the person wouldn't mind to answer them because they're genuine, interesting questions trying to connect to you. But then there are people who are just throwing things at you with just an ignorant quality of it. I think one might say what we call the emotional literacy. When you ask it, do you really want to know, or just trying to make a small talk is a way to cut through the game. And also then you can say, when you talk to me in that way, it really makes me feel less than. That would be one of the ways I would respond. I would really see the actual psychological message in it and tell it to the person. And that actually would make the relationship get a bit more real. I don't know how you feel about
Yeah,
this.
I mean, look, the more direct that you can be and open you can be in that way, it obviously you expose yourself to conflict
Mm-hmm.
on the one hand, but on the other hand, you are inviting more closeness and intimacy. And I think what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about is that we kind of, I think we automatically suss out everyone, like who are the people that really mean it, that want to know, and who are the people that just are making small talk. Because this is an important point, is that you're going to be different with different people, right? I mean, they're going to, if you know that someone doesn't want to know, for whatever reason, you're not going to do that with that person. You're not going to go there. But there, say there's someone else who you feel close with, and who maybe they just don't know how to talk to you about it, but you can you can take that risk with them.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there with them. So it's important to to sort of take each person for what they're bringing to the table, and not just sort of in general withdraw or shut yourself off, because that's one of the sort of things that can happen, is that you just be like, oh God, this is just too much work, I'm not going to go there with anyone. And then you end up feeling just sort of isolated and alone and misunderstood. Or maybe you have to, another issue is like you you're not expressing yourself at all, you're not telling people what you need, and then you get so exhausted that you just have to like leave or go, and people are like, oh, what's going on, and you end up feeling really alone. So um, definitely making the effort to have some people who you really feel like these are my allies, whether it's your partner, if you have a partner, uh, or just people that other than, I mean, when you're in the holiday situation, that you can talk to, that you can tell, and they can do some of the translating for you. Like if you have to go and take a break and you've got your allies there, and then someone says, hey, what happened to Johnny? And they can say, oh, Johnny just needed to go rest for a bit.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so important what you're saying. And what else do you think is important for the holiday season to discuss? The expectations, the existential concerns, I would say. What it reminds us: another year has passed. Will I see the next year? What's going to happen to me during the next year?
And also, yeah, like if you're someone who goes to the same place every year,
Mm.
there's something about, and it's not a place that you're normally at during the year. Say and suddenly you're there and you're like, oh, last year I could do X, Y, or Z, or last year I was feeling better and I noticed that it's harder for me this year. It can really bring up a lot of feelings. And plus, if you're surrounded by people that are active and healthy and doing a bunch of things and talking about it and not really aware, that can also make you feel like, oh man, I'm just I can't do any of those things.
Mm.
So just going in with the expectation, like this is going to bring up a lot of different
Mm.
feelings, and some expected, some unexpected. And I think the most important thing is going back to the allies and having people that you can talk to. Because if you just shut down and withdraw, you're gonna feel it. You're just gonna feel so alone with that pain, and that fear, and that um, And it's really important to have people that you can talk to.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Last week we were talking about socializing, and obviously that's very connected to what we're talking about today. And so if you're someone who happens to be more introverted, uh, combined with dealing with a chronic health condition, you have to be especially aware. But even if if you're an extrovert and you have a chronic illness, right? You want to be aware of going into it, having a plan for self-care. And one of the things that includes is sort of being aware of uh, what is too much.
Yeah, the problem for the extrovert is that because they used to be able to take it on, it's just even a double whammy to not being able to socialize the way they want, or to drink they want the way they want, or to stay as long as they want. It's almost shaming. I understand the dilemma for the introvert, but the extrovert suffers in a different way, but suffers a lot too. So there are lots of things to consider. This limiting yourself is such an important, knowing your limitations is such an important aspect of self-care, to be able to say, well, I don't think I can pull off a 6-hour dinner. How about 2 hours? And then before and after, I need to rest as well, prepare myself. So important.
Yes, and let people know, even though I'm sure it can be hard to sort of tell people, or tell people in advance, and you don't have to tell everyone. Tell your allies, find out who are the people that I can tell who are not going to judge me, who will understand, who will get it. Tell those people I'm probably going to have to leave or take a break, um, at some point during the dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really thinking about, just how can I take care of myself and not getting swept away, and then paying the price, the next day when you're just feeling totally exhausted or in pain or
I think that's it, David.
yeah. Thank you so much for listening. And if this was helpful, please like and share and subscribe, and check out our website, chronicillnesstherapy.com, and the Chronic Illness Therapy Facebook page. And we'll see you next week.